Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Welcome to another live stream. Today, I'm going to do a little bit of a World War III geopolitical petrodollar update because there have been some fairly ominous developments over the past day or two, and specifically, I'd like to start off with this language used by the president following the blockage of a Ukraine and Gaza war funding bill by Republican lawmakers. So we had in the Senate this package, a $110 billion package, came up for a vote, and Republican lawmakers blocked this funding package for the war. Seems like a lot of the Republicans are actually in favor of funding these conflicts, but they want more concessions on border security. So that's the story. But when you hear what Biden had to say in response to this, it leads me to believe that there are some significant escalations around the corner. So let's hear a look at what Biden had to say about this.
He's going to keep going. He's made that pretty clear. If Putin attacks a NATO ally, if he keeps going, and then he attacks a NATO ally, well, we've committed as a NATO member that we defend every inch of NATO territory. Then we'll have something that we don't seek and that we don't have today. American troops fighting Russian troops. American troops fighting Russian troops. If he moves into other parts of NATO.
Okay, so that's a little bit of foreshadowing for you. And, you know, a lot of times I think the powers that be like to sort of give us a hint of what is down the road. And this is the first time really that Biden has almost issued this implicit threat that we would have American troops fighting Russian troops should these funding packages not go through. So that should give us pause to reflect and realize that really World War III has already started. And I believe it's only a matter of time until the BRICS nations, the other bloc, if you will, comes to blows with the West. And I mean, really, we're already fighting proxy wars around the world. But now this threat of American troops fighting Russian troops, I think should, again, give us all pause and just understand this conflict. It may appear to be winding down. It may appear to be reaching some kind of a resolution. Likely not the case. Now, one thing, of course, that is guaranteed is that funding for these conflicts will continue, whether it be Ukraine, Gaza, or whatever other proxy conflicts happen to arise. And the U.S. national debt now pushing $34 trillion. Well, this funding package would get us right over that mark, wouldn't it? And this number is going to continue to go much higher. And yeah, I see Silver Fox in the chat there pointing out that BRICS set to expand in January, and that likely will be a critical time. Now only weeks away. You know, isn't it amazing that time goes so quickly? But that is right around the corner, and that is something that we need to keep an eye on, especially in light of this. Look at this video. This is Putin, who just made kind of an emergency last-minute trip to the Middle East, it seems like, to meet with the UAE leadership and also MBS. And just look at this. Look at how MBS and Putin are getting along here. Look at that greeting. Look at that. That looks pretty friendly to me, doesn't it? Putin reportedly greeted with jets, with horses, with all the regal fanfare. And it's a far cry from this, wouldn't you say? So, you know, if you had any doubt about where the petrodollar system was headed, that is the system by which the Saudis price their oil exports, and they are the world's biggest oil exporter, not the world's biggest producer, but the world's biggest oil exporter, that is likely to come to an end very soon. I mean, it may already have come to an end. We don't really know. I mean, it could be that the Saudis are already selling some of their oil for yuan, for example. They did just sign some new bilateral trade agreements with China. But again, if you want to have an idea of where the petrodollar system is headed, this clip here pretty much says it all, if you ask me. Now, moving on here, when the petrodollar system falls apart, I think that we're going to see a big move in commodities across the board, petroleum, a devaluing of the U.S. dollar, You want to get your hands on some gold and silver before that happens, make sure you check out today's video sponsor, sdbullion.com. Right now, new customers can get gold or silver at spot by visiting sdbullion.com/new. And look at this. I mean, this is the chart of gold, and you can see we had this big spike up just a few nights ago to record prices, $21.50. The spot price of gold hit. And what was it that triggered that move up? Well, nobody knows exactly what the catalyst was. However, there is some speculation that it had to do with these attacks by Houthi rebels on commercial vessels in the Red Sea. That was a development that kind of coincided with that spike up. So you can see what kind of an effect geopolitical disturbances will have on the price of precious metals. Now, honestly, we'll all be better off if cooler heads prevail and if these conflicts do not continue to accelerate and to spread. However, I view holding precious metals as an insurance policy in case that's not how this plays out. And from all the signs, it looks like more escalation is around the corner. So, we want to pay attention to these conflicts because they will have a major impact on the global economy and also on the purchasing power of the US dollar. So if you're somebody who earns US dollars, who spends US dollars, who saves US dollars, this is going to be an important development to keep an eye on. And also, in the Middle East, it's not just the Houthi attacks on the shipping in the Red Sea. We also continue to have the possibility of a major escalation along the Lebanon border with Israel. So recently, on December 6th, so yesterday, a Lebanese army soldier was killed by Israeli shelling. Now, the Israelis say that they were targeting a known Hezbollah launch point for their attacks. They actually issued kind of a rare apology. They said they regretted the killing. However, this goes to show that that conflict has a significant possibility of spreading. And just look at this development. You can see from the Times of Israel, an Israeli civilian was killed by anti-tank missile fire in the north as Hezbollah attacks continue. That was from earlier today. And this ominous warning from Netanyahu to Hezbollah: if you attack, we'll turn Beirut into Gaza. So basically threatening to level the country. Lebanon, I'm sure, is very hesitant to get drawn into this conflict. In the 2006 conflict, much of southern Lebanon was bombed, including Beirut International Airport. So, they probably want to stay out of this, but Hezbollah might have some other plans. And, this warning, again, this is pretty serious stuff. He's saying we're going to turn your country into Gaza should this second front open up. But what will that do to Hezbollah's regional allies, namely Iran? Well, they could very well be drawn into this as well. And, we still have 2 U.S. aircraft carrier groups sitting in the Middle East, potential ripe targets. I mean, sure, does give us the ability to project some force there, but also it's a lot easier to strike at U.S. forces when they're in your theater rather than, if they're at home or somewhere else. So this is all, not stopping. The conflict continues to worsen. We've got Putin and Russia establishing tighter ties in the Middle East, cementing their grasp over Middle East oil production, Middle East oil sales. You've got the UAE and Saudi Arabia both joining BRICS come January. And again, I mean, all you got to look at is Putin doing his dance with MBS here. And I think that gives you an idea of where the Saudis' loyalty is going to lie. Now, sure, they're still allied with the U.S., still their biggest supplier of strategic resources, but they can find alternative sources for weapons. And in terms of the economic front, which is probably really the more important front when it comes to all of this, it appears that the Saudis are firmly, more and more, in the Russian camp. And, let's look at the price of crude oil real quick. I will acknowledge that, I got this one wrong. On October 7th, when I saw the attacks in Israel and the outbreak of war there, I thought that the price of crude oil would be heading higher. Of course, that's not how this has played out. We have seen the price of crude oil have a pretty significant decline. We've got multiple factors here. We've got the U.S. oil production moving higher. The conflict in the Middle East still remains relatively isolated, but my forecast for crude oil is still that we are going to see much higher crude oil prices moving forward, especially in the long term. We've got OPEC cutting production, and should a conflict in the Middle East escalate, then you can guarantee the price of crude is going to be moving much higher. Now, the price of crude where it is right now, actually kind of beneficial in some ways for some of the gold miner stocks. That's something that the low oil prices, I believe, will benefit, because you've got gold sitting near record all-time highs. Price of crude oil going down, that should actually be good for the miners as their cost to produce gold declines. So should this remain low, maybe we'll see some higher earnings from the gold miners. That's also something I'm sure many of you stackers are keeping an eye on. But my forecast is still for higher crude oil for a number of reasons. I mean, not the least of which is this. Just the U.S. national debt. I mean, this thing ensures that the dollar is going to be devalued in the long run. There's no way to pay this off without devaluing the currency. And so the price of oil, at least in terms of the dollar-denominated price, I believe is going to be on the rise. But listen, oil may not be denominated in dollars for the, not necessarily the foreseeable future. I mean, it's going to be priced in dollars for a while, but that's not guaranteed now as we move forward into this deglobalized, conflict-ridden world. So, look, get ready, folks. Keep an eye on these developments. You know what I'm doing. I'm getting into hard assets. I'm stacking gold and silver. That, especially silver. At today's prices, I think that's an absolute steal. Gold maybe is looking a little pricey by some measures, but I think we will be breaking through this all-time high here in the relatively near future. As soon as we get a close above $2,100, this thing's going to be off to the races. I think the kind of sure thing for that is going to be when the Fed, whenever it decides to begin printing again, which is inevitable, that's going to drive the price up. But it could be one of these geopolitical events. So keep your eyes peeled, pay attention to these developments, and just get prepared. So that's all I got for you today. Stay safe and happy stacking, everybody, and I will catch you next time.